had enough time to get up, leave the entire studio, go into another room entirely, poke around in the refrigerator for a little bit. You were talking quickly too. It's not like you were. It's not like you were dragging your feet.
No, I read that comment about 8 times before because when I saw the length of it, I was like, I have to read this on air, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a passion plea.
Well, and Tim and I had talked that the comment itself made the main point in the first slate, that we really could have skipped the other 3 slates if need be. And I figured if the other questions had gone longer, but we read them and you went, yep, next. And I was like, oh crap. Okay, I guess I am using all 4 slates. That's fine. That we could have shortened that up if need be.
Also, it was fun to get up and go get a soda.
Yeah, I kind of figured that as much. As soon as you left, I was like, nope, that's it. I'm reading this now. Yeah. Never mind. I can just slow down, I guess.
I do hate the walls of
do whatever
text,
I
though.
want.
If you can't make your point it's the elevator pitch concept.
I know.
All right, we need to do an open, and then Dave, do you have time to come on and talk about more stuff? All right.
Dave's like, no, I'm getting out of here.
I'm done with you people. I always love having Dave on the show because there's always some need. I was doing dreamy eyes this whole time. I was like,
yeah, I know.
Come on,
hi, Dave.
You should have seen me over in the.
because we're married doesn't mean your bromance goes away.
Yeah, exactly. The really adorable thing, though, is that the Dave crush clearly goes both ways, because there was a story that was told earlier about lunch that you somehow, I don't know what happened.
Turn it into lunch.
Launch.
Oh, lunch? I thought it was a launch.
No, it was lunch, and that was the best part. And then Dave was like, launch. I'm sure it was something. Yeah, that was great. And you just smoothed over the whole thing. And had I not brought it up right now, nobody would know the difference. But Tiff and I stood there in the corner. We're like, what the F is going on right now? What is he doing? Whatever. She and I are laughing. Yeah, the two of you are like, yeah, no, it's, I mean, yeah.
We're a good team.
I said that. Hey, what's up? How's it going?
I was keeping him on his toes is what I was doing. Keeping him on his toes.
Clearly, yeah. Well, I mean, it worked, I guess.
Hopefully you guys...
As Dave literally jumps off of the couch and onto his toes.
I did feel a little bad because now I'm like, and tell me about this. And you're like, I hadn't planned on that.
Good job.
All right.
Good job. Yeah, we need to do an open.
Do an open. Let's bring the Masten back on.
For the open?
No, do an open and then let's bring the Masten back on.
The Masten.
Might as well be the Masten. We don't have a couch cam yet.
No, actually, but I do think what I want to do is...
we are working on couch cam, yes.
You're not going to see that until Orbit 10.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's start off with Space Mike, Jared. I will say I have an interview with Dave Masten, and you will toss us to the show. How about that? You can say whatever you want. You don't have to say tomorrow begins right now. Do you need a moment to think about?
I have no idea. It's fine. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're going to do. Do you need a moment to think about what you're going to say?
No, because we can just continue to do opens until we have one.
I'm going to say Juno has a hiccup.
Juno has a hiccup. All right, so Mike, you're going to say...
2 crews launch into space.
Juno has a hiccup.
Dave Masten. And then you. All right. Ready? Everybody ready? Is she going to press the buttons for us? It's great.
Baby Dada's pressing buttons.
That is the most adorable thing, like, ever. There's a little baby Dada, like, smiling.
She's, like, smirking of, like,
Yeah.
I feel safe over here,
like,
but I don't know why you're waving
I wish
at me.
we had a Dada cam because he's at this giant control surface with big blinky lights, and she's just, like, on his lap, like, ready to press a button. It is adorable. She's looking at everyone that's waving at her, enjoying the attention.
She looks like one of those cat clocks where the eyes go back and forth. That's what's going on right now. Her eyes are gigantic.
Look at her.
Dada says she feels both secure and terrified to be in the
amazing.
aquarium with everyone looking at her.
Has Baby Dada pressed record? Okay.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask if we're recording. All right, here we go. This is number one.
Coming up, 2 crews launch into space.
Juno has a hiccup.
I have an interview with Dave Masten in studio.
And I crack up on air thanks to our live audience. All of that and more coming up on this week's episode of TMRO. So there.
You like that one? One take?
That was very good, Carrie Ann.
Yeah. It's
Thank
pretty
you.
awesome.
I have a great retail voice. Yeah. Yeah, it's all your fault. Although I said live audience and not
We have a live audience.
well, yeah, but
We do.
that's not why I cracked up. I actually cracked up because of comments in our chat room. Our live chat room is what I wanted. But I said live audience.
They're a live audience too.
Yeah.
They're just online audience. All right, let's bring Dave back in. Sure.
How do you, Ben and everyone else, how do you guys think we did for the lightning round of news?
Oh yeah, so that's right. I forgot to mention before we bring Dave back on. We did. We obviously changed the news in case you didn't notice. We had a 30-second limit on each launch. We had a 90-second limit on each story.
That was fast.
The idea was to keep the energy up in news. We try to make this show as social as possible, right? The whole point of doing this live is so that you can interact in real time. However, with news, there's not a whole lot of reason to interact. We're telling you what happened. There's no need to have real-time feedback. So we're trying to shorten the news segment a little bit. Instead of being like 15, 20 minutes, make it like 9 to 10 minutes. And really just kind of be like, here's what happened, 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 and then get into the interview segment, and then lengthen the interview segment out to maybe 25, 30 minutes, which is what we did today. So
Yep.
Let me know if you liked it. I think that it did keep the energy up, but it's still not quite right. I don't know what's not right. So you guys couldn't see this, but last week after we went off the air, I'm like, news isn't right, it's wrong, I don't know how to fix this, let's work on it. We came up with this scheme. I think it's better. I think it's a lot better, but it's still, yeah, so
Well,
what
that
Dennis said
and,
is going
like-
to take a couple of shows for us to get used to it and to hone it in.
That,
Yeah.
but like also scary, evil-looking Ben with watch in hand standing behind the cameras is also very intimidating.
I was fine with it today.
Like
Yeah,
I
it
was
reminded
intimidated, and
me.
I wasn't on camera.
I wasn't enforcing anything, but I was wanting to understand how close we were to our target.
Sure.
So you were consistently about 20 seconds under.
Okay.
And Mike, you were consistently about 30 seconds over. So it
balanced.
It balanced. It balanced. I don't know. I think it worked okay. I think we need to hone those launches a little bit more. I think that's just a process thing more than anything else. Let's see here.
Valensky saying that news says their favorite part. News segment is favorite from Space Kyle. Doom Kitty news segment is also my favorite. Too light on the details this time around, which I can understand. That made a lot of sense. Doom Kitten says I don't always like to listen to your interviews.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's
And
totally
you don't
fair.
have to. You don't have to like to listen to the interviews. But here's the thing: with the news, we can bake that into space pods. So for the really detailed stuff, that belongs in a space pod. That doesn't belong in the live show. Otherwise, it's going to be. I mean, it's just going to be very long, drawn-out news. And
Ano says I like the discussion after each story.
Interesting. So, like the discussions after each story, maybe. All right. So that's fair.
If the news was more like a discussion, and you compared or not compared, but you, like today you put in the couple of docking, the more astronauts, taikonauts, all the knots in space as one story, and then you discuss like why that's important, why we're telling you the news.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the news thing. This is why it's newsworthy. Might be a better discussion with all of us.
Yeah. So if
I turn to
news-
Mike like he can see me turning to him.
So that's just it. But traditionally, so this is the thought process. Traditionally, news hadn't been much of a discussion.
Right.
News had been more, here's what happened, here's a bunch of figures, and then like maybe a question from one of us, maybe not, and then we moved on to the next thing. And it was starting to get drawn out in just lots of numbers and figures. And remember, we want to be approachable to as many people as possible, right? So
Right.
what we don't want to do is get bogged down in numbers and details. For that, that's a space pod.
Sure.
We
Yes.
have a different element for that. So I'm not saying this is the right format. What I am saying is we're playing with the format to see what is right, because what we were doing before wasn't right. Now, what I may have done is gone too far in the wrong direction, and what we should have done instead is turn news in. I may have gone the exact opposite direction I needed to go into, and instead I may need to go the other way and turn it into a discussion. I don't know, but if you guys are up for it, I'd like to try this a couple more times
I'm up for
just
it.
to see what works. And if we go, that really doesn't work, I mean, it really doesn't, then we'll try something else. But that's one thing with the show is we're always willing to try things, see what
Yes.
works, and if it doesn't work, we'll stop it and we'll try something else. So anyhow,
So there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So quick news isn't going to inform the newbies or interest the experienced. Yes, there is absolutely a balancing act here. The thing is, I don't feel like doing it like there's a lot of fluff that you can remove from our news segments right now. That's you just don't need. So just because it's quick doesn't mean that you've lost information.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's brand new. It's the first time we tried it. Blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a couple of bumps on the road with that. Sorry, keep forgetting you guys can't hear Dutta. What Dutta's saying is that that's part of the honing process of like, okay, you only have 90 seconds. You have to give us the most, not just the data's in fact, but you have to give us the most interesting part of the entire story in that short amount of time.
Destructor says we don't need to be broadcast convention compliant. I like natural discussion. We're
Yeah.
not trying. This isn't the goal of this is not to become broadcast convention compliant. The goal of this is to keep the energy of the show up. What I had been noticing was that in our news segment, the energy was wrong. Like the news segment was dragging, and it just wasn't good. So I'm not saying that this is the right solution, but what I am saying is what we were doing before was definitely wrong. So we need to find a way to make it higher energy. Conversational is okay. If we can find a way to make, I think the biggest pro to this show is the conversation.
Yes.
Right? That's what makes this show magical. So if we can find a way to bring this into news, I am absolutely about that. But I'm not seeing a clear path to do that. So maybe that's my fault, and maybe
She can talk. She's fine.
Yeah. We're in After Dark.
Hi,
okay.
Duda.
Maybe what I need to do is actually go back to the drawing board and say, okay, nope, this is wrong. We need to find a way to make this conversational, not faster. And I think conversational will bring that energy up. It's a different way to bring the energy up,
Right.
but I think it's still a way to do it. So this is good feedback, guys. Let me noodle it, and let me see if maybe there's. Let me just noodle this. I think that's good feedback, and I'll use that data.
Yeah. I did just want to say, I think it goes back to the whole elevator pitch, and we can do that in a kind of conversational way. Like, we got to get, everyone to get the important information and why you should care about this in that 90 seconds. And in a conversational sense, maybe that's how we could maybe bring Capcom back on to be that person questioning, why should I care about this? Why is this important? Just to kind of be that direction, I guess.
I really did like the 90-second. Like everyone's saying bigger news segment. News wasn't smaller. It was the same amount of news that you normally get. The only thing we did was we took out, like there are transitions that we normally do between. Those were gone, which doesn't add to the news anyhow. It's just like an extra 30 seconds to a minute. And as Dutta said, Jared and Mike did really good with that. So we removed an element of the show that I don't think matters anyhow. And they moved a little bit faster. We took the launches down to 30 seconds. I really think 30 seconds for launches and doing all the launches up front actually was a good format. Because you really don't need to...
Sure, but the only differentiation there is that then part of the news story was related to that launch. So when you go, here's a launch, here's a launch, here's a launch. Oh, and by the way, that launch that you saw earlier, one of them was really interesting, and here's why. I think that still needs to be all in one story. That for me, because
Maybe.
because if it's just here's a launch of the satellite, here's a launch of the satellite, here's a launch of the satellite. We don't know anything about the one because it's from China. Sorry, like that's one thing, but. Hey, here's a launch. It's really interesting. Here's why it's interesting. Now we have more people in space than we've ever had before. Like we added another number to that people who've been in space number, which is freaking amazing. I think that needs to be tied to that. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
But again, the conversation is to here's why it's interesting. Here's why you care. Here's why you want to care. Or here's why you didn't even know that you care, but you really do. Or here's why everyone else seems to care and you actually don't care. Which are those things happen too.
Well,
it's like every once in a while there's a space story and like everyone in the universe is focusing on it and we're all sitting here going, yeah, I don't know why anybody cares about this right now. Like it's neat, but it's not that great. But that's part of that conversation that we've been skipping over. What we've been doing with news is, hey, here's some stuff. Hey, here's some stuff. Here's some stuff. It's going to get interesting in a minute. Okay, after this break.
Yeah.
Right? I think we need to converse about what's interesting and why.
But there's not always something interesting, like a lot of.
No, there isn't always
This week
something
was a good
interesting.
example of that, but there are times when we launched a communication satellite.
I
That's
literally said that.
Right. So okay. So how do we?
So at that point, then yes,
I guess-
go back to the
I
30-second
guess-
launch thing.
I guess my point is that usually that's what happens. This was an odd week.
Yes, I addressed that.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't apparently comprehend what you were saying.
I'll talk slower. Sometimes there's launches about just satellites and nobody DGAF, right? So we get to go, here's a 30-second launch, it's just a satellite, NBD. Then there are other times, like this one, where it was, hey, here's a launch, it's really cool, here's why you care. Hey, did you know that you care? Did you know that you care? Because I care, and this is why you should care too.
right.
Was that better?
I guess.
Are you sure? Because
Yeah,
I feel
I'm-
like I just repeated what I said before and you still didn't understand me.
Carrie Ann, stop bullying the boys, says Citizen 15622.
Well, but I also sort of feel like
No, yeah.
you're just saying the same things that I said, but because you're saying it now, somehow it means something different.
No, I'm trying to work out in my head how to close that gap. I just don't know how to do it yet. That's all.
Okay, because I feel like I gave you the answer, but you're not accepting it as an answer.
Yeah,
And I feel
don't-
like the other women in the room are actually nodding along with me.
So the reason I'm not convinced that we shouldn't still do. I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree in that you have the Taikonaut story, right?
That is the best noise ever. Okay, here's the deal. You and I and the rest of us, we can have this discussion off air. For an After Dark episode, that's kind of BS. Everyone there knows that I'm right, so that's
Yeah.
cool. We'll just convince him later,
I'm not-
NBD, and then we'll just bring Dave on. Is that
In any case,
she likes it?
right
Baby
now.
Dutta likes it, so I mean I'm in, right? All
In
the
any case,
girls
we're
are in agreement right
experimenting
now, and there's 4 of us and 4 of you, and then Mikey. I love you.
All right, let's
I'm
bring
neutral.
Dave.
I'm on everybody's side.
Hashtag Carrie Ann is right. All right,
Perfect.
let's bring Dave
Mike, it's
back
been
on.
nice hearing you in my head. I apologize. I'm going to have to.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Well, you get to keep the earpiece. You just got to give up.
Oh, I
the-
suppose I can hear you. You just can't hear me anymore. So thanks,
All right.
kids. Love you.
And you know what? I'll be right back as well. I need to use the bathroom really bad.
All right.
Glad we were able to get the intro segment.
Are you pooping?
If
Ah!
you want, I'll tell you all about it when I get back.
Am I staying up or?
Oh, you can stay on set.
Okay, sure. Are you pooping?
The issue I have with Carrie Ann's plan while we're waiting is that it can force us, like there's this kind of natural cadence to having all the launches together, and by doing that you're going to break that cadence up in a weird way, and I haven't figured out in my head how to have both this natural cadence and an extended conversation on something in the middle of that natural cadence without it being awkward, like not awkward, but jarring. I don't know. There's something there. Anyhow,
Gotcha.
She will probably end up doing what she said. I'm trying to see if I can have my cake and eat it too. If that, Dave, you magically found some way to sit in the perfect place so that all we have are your floating hands. It was pretty epic. Oh my gosh. So, hi Dave.
Hi, Ben.
That should have been our open.
Your mic
Dave,
is
can you check your mic?
Just remember to
What? Check, check, check.
Hang on, the belt pack,
yeah.
little green light. There you go.
Got it.
Okay, is that on?
There we go.
Yes.
All right. Interstellar. Dave, have you ever thought about crowdfunding?
Yeah, and it doesn't work.
You say on a crowdfunded show. All right. Dude, please tell me how crowdfunding doesn't work.
Hey, it worked for my back.
Oh, that's adorable.
It does not work if you need hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. What is the largest crowdfunding now? It's like $1 million. It's a couple million, I think. It's
Yeah,
not enough to.
it's respectable. I mean, you can definitely start a small business on crowdfunding. You know, if crowdfunding had been around in 2004 when I started this, maybe it might have been helpful. But crowdfunding for a launch vehicle, yeah, I don't think so. And we've actually had some of our competitors have tried going the crowdfunding route, and they've not had any success.
Wait, who tried to crowdfund? Oh, wait.
Exos Aerospace has
I guess I
been
didn't know.
crowdfunding.
Okay.
There's been a couple of others, and I just don't recall their names right now.
The good kind of crazy, like really, really crazy, but the good kind. Copenhagen suborbitals.
Copenhagen, okay.
They're
yeah.
basically crowdfunded, and they're sort of flying things.
And they're volunteer.
Yeah, but they're also kind of
yeah,
sort of crowdfunded too. It's
Yeah.
more donations. I'm not sure how to classify that. It's not traditional. It's like old school crowdfunding.
Yeah.
So, do you think there is a way to be more? Sorry, the baby is. I'm sorry. Give me just 1 second. We need to mic that. Hang on.
It's kind of hard to compete with the baby. So
Hang on. Let's see if we can get a mic closer.
this is why you don't work with kids.
Kids and animals. You don't work with kids and animals.
Just becomes a whole mess.
I gotta have a little talk with my agent.
I feel like someone should grab one of the cameras and aim it into there.
Oh my God, the look of joy on her face is precious. All right, fist bump. Ready? Fist bump. Boop. All right. Sorry. That's what happens on the show. So the question I was trying to ask, it was written weird, but basically it was, I think along the lines of, do you think there's going to be a way that with these government contracts, they will find a way to allow you to be more open about what you're doing or public faster?
I hope so. But, it's just bureaucracy. So no matter how you feel about the presidential election coming up, remember it's the bureaucracy that controls everything, so it doesn't matter that much. I keep telling myself that. But yeah, no, it's the bureaucracy. I have no idea when they'll finally get around to the idea of, oh, hey, maybe, when you do that engine test under a contract with us, you should be able to say, post to Twitter or Facebook the wonderful, beautiful shock diamonds that you've created out of that rocket engine, within 30 seconds of doing it. Who knows?
Is it possible to pre-ask for permission? Be like,
we have not been able to, I've tried a number of different ways of saying, here's the picture I sort of want to do, but it's not the real picture. I want to just have this ready to go so that when we do get the real picture, I can do it, and it goes nowhere real fast. It's like, oh, that hasn't been approved, so no, you can't. So,
Painful?
I find it painful, and there's a lot of people who are like, oh, what's so bad about 2-week turnaround?
No, it's not 2-week turnaround though. That's just it, right? I mean, it's 2 weeks before you get the first part of your answer.
2 week is the absolute minimum. By the way, that's work days weeks, not calendar weeks.
Oh, so it's like 2.5 weeks.
Sheesh.
So yeah, it's
3 weeks.
almost 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way. Yeah, a little over 2 weeks prior to a major presentation. And submitted all the materials if I had them all ready, and then all of a sudden I get to the day and I don't have permission yet. We're trying to figure out what's going on, and
So we were supposed to ask, and I did forget. Moon again or Mars next?
we got to do Moon first.
Why?
The Moon is a great place to go to the next level of independence from Earth. Right now we know how to be more or less independent as long as you can get something up or down within a matter of days or weeks. And it's just low Earth orbit. I mean, and that's the thing. We have this thing that you can get somebody back to civilization within less than 24 hours off their emergency escape plans, right?
I think it's 72 hours.
72
full return.
hours.
Yeah. Something like that.
But anyway, I mean, very, very quick. I mean, you go off ISS, you jump into whichever vehicle happens to be there at ISS at that time, and you're back down fairly quickly. We're starting to see a little bit of that experience in Antarctica, but I think the Moon will take that to the next level, and that's really, a minimum of 3-day travel time. To begin with. And then there's all sorts of orbital phasing stuff that you have to worry about as well. And I think it's a chance to start learning a little bit more about microgravity, or partial gravity, I guess I should say. And eventually, basically, the ability to get to Mars quickly is very much enhanced if you do it from the Earth-Moon Lagrange point 2.
So you're using the Moon and specifically L2 as kind of a launching point. That's your gateway to the solar system.
Use the Moon as a way of getting some of the resources that you'll need for your travel.
So what does the Masten space architecture look like? Right, you've been dreaming about all this for a while. I mean, fuel depots, launching point from the Moon. I mean, what's this all look like? So, I mean,
we've participated a little bit in helping ULA figure out their Cislunar 1000. So, there's a point of reference for, the next, I hope it's a little bit faster than ULA thinks it is, but, basically we're looking at propellant depots we think are a major thing. EML2 gateway is a wonderful idea. Lori Garver mentioned it briefly at an AIAA space conference a couple of years ago, and then it just didn't go anywhere. But that was like, yes, we need that. That's what we need. We need that EML2 gateway. That's really the way to get to the rest of the solar system.
EML2 is the Earth-Mars Lagrange point 2 gateway, right?
Yeah.
So, yep.
So yeah, and that's the Lagrange point that's far side of the Moon from us.
So for most of the space nerds here already know a Lagrange point, but basically a Lagrange point is a location in space where the gravity from the nearby objects, planets, sun, whatever it might be, kind of holds you in that place, and you don't have to expend a lot of fuel to basically stay there. Now, the myth is that you have to expend zero fuel, but that's not true. You do need to expend a little bit.
Station keeping everywhere.
You do need some station keeping, exactly, but it's far less than just trying to stay in, say, low Earth orbit or wherever you might be, or even lunar orbit or.
And then another nice thing that the Lagrange points happen to have is that there are low energy transfers between Lagrange points. Very low energy. They're also slow, but that's fine for most of your supplies. Most of your supplies don't care if it takes a long time to go from place to place, as long as it's a constant, steady stream.
Sure.
And so from your Lagrange points, you have opportunities to basically use very little energy, and yet you can do some extremely large transfers.
So there are Lagrange points between Earth, Moon, and the Sun, like some kind of in our
So
local.
so a Lagrange point is technically the various points on a three-body
Sure.
three-body gravity solution. And part of the reason why you need to expend energy is because we have Jupiter that always messes everything up.
Stupid Jupiter.
But for every planetary body, there is a sun in that planet Lagrange system. Then, for any given body and a sufficiently sized moon, you're going to also have a set of Lagrange points. So Earth, Moon has a set of Lagrange points. Earth, Sun, and Venus have a set of Lagrange points. Sun and Earth have a set of Lagrange points.
But my question was going to be you have the same thing for Mars as well, right? 'Cause you've
For
got Lagrange
Sun,
points-
Mars, yes.
Yep. So you've got Lagrange points around near Mars. So are you doing? And when you say EML2, is that including that's the Lagrange points near Earth and the Lagrange points near Mars?
EML2 is a specific Lagrange point for Earth-Moon system. So Earth, Moon, Lagrange 2. So there's 5 Lagrange points for each system.
Right.
So Earth-Moon system.
Right.
And then it's the second one. So the first one is the point between between the two bodies. It's a line. The second one is extend that line past the second body, and then 3 is going back the opposite direction.
Right.
And then 4 and 5 are the ones at 60 degrees.
So my question is, are you going from the Lagrange points in the Earth system to the Lagrange points in the Mars systems, or are you going from a Lagrange point in the Earth system straight to Mars?
There are some very low energy trajectories that can do that, but you would also do for high value goods, say people.
Yep.
You want to go from EML2 and you're just going to use EML2 as your launch point, because then you're coming down towards Earth. Very little energy to get to going towards Earth, but you actually do a swing by of Earth and get a gravity assist, and use your Oberth effect, which is basically a little extra energy push you get when you do a burn right next to a large gravity body. And so that gives you a little extra boost, basically reduces your energy requirements, and go straight to the Mars. And then, for example, for a high value, very quick trajectory type thing that you might want to do, you can cut that down from the optimal quick transfer is about 9 months from Earth to Mars. You can cut that down to maybe 3 months.
So from L2
But that's
using
just-
an Earth gravity assist, and you'd still need to fire some engines.
You're going to fire the engines, yeah, but you're going to fire them as you're coming around the Earth. You're going to fire them, and you can basically get to a reasonable level of delta V, a reasonable energy level that you need to get by firing your engines, and actually cut your trajectory down to where you're only doing a 3-month transfer. And then you can do a combination of propulsive and aerobraking maneuvers to capture yourself into Mars.
But that's assuming you were starting from L2.
But that's assuming you're starting from L2.
So I've already done some journey to get to L2. Because
Yes.
I probably went from Earth to the Moon and then from Moon to L2.
You probably
Or
went
Earth to
from an Earth
L2?
orbit straight to L2.
Okay. So from our not yet existing Earth orbiting station that anyone can go to, from Bigelow Station Alpha to L2,
Yep.
then from L2, gravity assist. Now, when I said I assumed energy burning for gravity assist, once I go through the gravity assist through Earth, do I need another burn? I've already gone through all of it, so now I'm on my way to Mars. Do I need an additional burn on my way to Mars to get the delta V necessary?
The
Or
only
am I-
additional burn you need between Earth and Mars in that case is basic trajectory corrections.
Okay, so
you
we're
know-
not going to really count those. That's just
Yeah, half a meter per second as opposed to the thousands of meters per second.
So really, my gravity assist is enough to get me to Mars.
that
in
will
3
that will
months.
get you going to Mars.
And I can stop and enter a Martian orbit.
You'll need to burn at Mars
But I have.
or aero capture.
I mean that's not an insane delta V that I can't null out, right? I mean I have to null out that energy, right? So I have
you have to null it out. So basically, I mean, it's
It seems like
I
I'm
need
going
a
to be going
whiteboard.
really, really
I
fast.
need a whiteboard. Yes, you are going to be going really, really fast.
I'm going to need a lot of fuel, and I'm going to need a lot of power to slow myself down to enter a Martian orbit or whatever I'm doing at that point, right?
So that, or you can do aerodynamic assisted braking maneuvers at Mars.
So, dumb question. I always heard that there's just enough atmosphere on Mars to be troublesome, but not enough for you to do anything reasonable. Is that not the case? I mean, like I can't use parachutes. I guess I'm gonna have to use my surface. I have to use the surface of my vehicle.
We've done a number of there have been aero capture maneuvers done by spaceship going to Martian orbit. That's been done. It's been proven.
But you're going pretty fast. Assuming a
No,
3 months trajectory.
if we do the 3 months trajectory, you're going to be going a lot faster. So you're going to do a combination. You're going to do a burn to get your hyperbolic velocity at Mars down to a reasonable level so that you can use the aero capture.
I guess my question is that a reasonable burn, or is that just a really insane, crazy burn?
I think it's reasonable.
Okay.
But, you have different definitions of reasonable.
I mean, it's kind of what we do with spacecraft right now, anyhow. I
Yeah.
mean, like Trace Gas Orbiter, which they just put into orbit, burned its engine, but it's in this long, elongated orbit.
Seems like a bad example to use, but all right, yeah.
And
no.
they're,
TGO's doing fine, right? TGO's doing fine.
That went perfect. It's the other one that with obviously we're not going to use litho braking.
But we're not
you know.
talking about we're not talking about small cargo. This conversation was about people. Like we started with talking people.
We're talking about high value cargo, right?
High value, large, massy cargo, right?
That's true.
Right. I mean, people
Yeah.
is going to be more. You're going to have more mass with people than you are with.
I guess just a good frame of reference here is that
High massy.
TGO is going to use aero braking. Basically, it's going to dip into the upper fringes of Mars's atmosphere and use the drag against itself and its solar panels to circularize its orbit without expending as much fuel. But it's still going to take many months for it to do that. It's going to go until this upcoming summer.
But that
basically.
defeats the point of everything we just talked about.
But I was just about to say.
Well,
that's
so
the-
this is
so
that's
you're
why I
using a common
said
stuff, but then
you
I'm saying-
do the burn plus the aero capture. You can actually keep your energy management reasonable. It's not as long, right? And so instead of several months, maybe that burn brings it down to, a combination of capture and bring the orbit down low enough that it's a few weeks, so that your total travel time to the surface of Mars, instead of being 9 months, might be 6 months.
Okay.
Or 5 months.
And that might give you like enough time to check out everything while you're in orbit around Mars, just to make sure that all your systems are working and everything before you go for surface.
It seems like if it's a
Maybe your
3-month transit.
maybe your transfer station at Mars is in a very highly elliptical orbit where a small burn and 2 or 3 passes through the atmosphere is sufficient, and then you do your transfer, and then you have additional propellants and additional resources.
So then do you
Sure,
end up
take
with
you
like
down
an
from
Aldrin
there.
cycler kind of methodology where you just have this thing that goes from your L2 point over to kind of my highly elliptical station, and then I use that station as my transfer to and fro?
So I think you can think of it that way. Yeah, I think you could do something like that.
Nice.
That might be.
But
way to go.
back to the Masten.
And maybe you have the huge space vessels are the cyclers that are just constantly up there and just going back and forth between. And then your launch vehicles can be fairly small. You can be in a tight, cramped capsule for 8 hours. It's the 3 months that you don't want to be in a tight, cramped capsule. So
6 or 9, yeah.
or 6 or 9. So
Well, Mike doesn't mind. Mike will do it.
I don't know anybody
Sure,
who stand
especially if I
being
can be the
in those
first.
capsules for very long.
So is that so?
Now, can you tell us then a little bit like what your hypothetical?
So think about it like the
lander
old
might
sailing
look
ships.
like?
The old
Would it be
sailing ships,
more
you
like
actually got out onto a small boat to go from the sailing ship onto shore.
Okay.
That makes sense. So I'm sorry. 1 second. We're going to repeat Space Mike's question for you. The hypothetical what are?
So, Dave, can you tell us what your hypothetical lander might look like? Would it be kind of like a capsule design, or would this be like a really, really big Zeus lander?
What does your hypothetical lander look like? Is it a capsule design or is it like Zeus squared?
It is Zeus.
It is Zeus.
It is Zeus. It's you take this big thing with a large propellant mass fraction, and you have a couple of you have 4 landing engines that will land it down.
For those who don't know, tell them what
horizontally.
Zeus is.
Okay, so Zeus is our original concept for Zeus was Centaur, Centaur upper stage of the Atlas V, and previously the Titan II as well. Which is, just a large tank, hydrogen and oxygen.
5 meters, right? 5 meters?
4?
No, Centaur is a 3-meter diameter.
3 meters, all right.
Yes.
Now it works with ACES, which is a 5-meter.
Okay, yep.
So we've already looked at, upgrading to ACES. But anyway, you have the large upper stage thing. It's, huge tanks. You put a bunch of stuff on the front of it, or on top if you're oriented that way. And you put the engine so that you can land the upper stage sideways.
Yep.
You basically have engines out on each corner, and you land it sideways. And by doing that, and you have the payload in the traditional place, your payload is now right next to the ground. And so you don't need anything to get off the top of the rocket down to the ground. It's right there. It's already at ground level. But your main engines can still be in the traditional space, and that allows you a lot of benefit in terms of the structures of the vehicle. So you have your primary thrust axis goes through the tank in a way that the tank is actually stiffened for. Is that a question? Is that a question?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
What's your question,
So
Spaceman?
since you're going to be landing sideways, would that be able to create a lot of drag when you're re-entering? And would you have to upgrade it to have heat shields?
All right, so since you're entering sideways, does that create drag on landing? And then if it does, do you have to upgrade, do you have to add heat shields to do
So
that
coming into Mars, for example, we would need a little more TPS then. I mean, there's already TPS on a Centaur or an ACES because it has to go up and has to insulate against the hydrogen. So
But it's insulating the other direction, isn't it? Right, it's basically
Yes.
trying to keep...
insulation is insulation.
I don't feel like that's fair. I mean, I guess, but I mean, no.
So all we need-
No. If you were to drop that on a re-entry, if you were to take Centaur and come in at 22,000 kilometers an hour,
You need something to protect from the high temperature initially, right? Because the type of insulation in use for Centaur right now is designed for the ascent thermal load,
Right.
which is not anywhere near as bad as reentry.
right?
So it's basically a lower temperature, but all you need is an insulation, right? And then all you need is a layer of high temperature stuff over top of that, or replace that insulation with a high temperature insulation. And no matter what, you still need a layer of a harder substance to actually handle the force of it, right? And any particles it might hit. So you'll have some kind of carbon-carbon composite, for example, or something hopefully maybe a little bit better than the carbon-carbon.
So you're working on Zeus now, right? I mean, you have...
So yeah, Zeus is one of those projects sort of off and on. We're constantly working on it, but at different levels of energy going into it,
Sure.
depending on the funding situation
But
and politics and everything else.
There's bent metal, right? This isn't just
But
a
this
paper.
is-
This isn't just on paper. You have things that you're actively
We
working
have
on.
2 Centaur tanks that we're actively working on,
Right.
and fitting with stuff.
So this goes back to the earlier conversation of I don't see Masten doing much of anything. Yeah, people may not see that you're working on this stuff, but you are bending metal. You have the tanks. You're working on these things. I mean, what you're talking
Yes.
about here with Zeus is conceptually very cool, but it's I mean, you're talking about a thing that can land on the moon and can land it. You have a lunar and Martian lander that you're working on right now, capable, size-wise in theory, of carrying people.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's what you're working on and building. More than just dreaming, you're actually building.
Yeah, we're actually building it. We have the hardware. We're actually building hardware. We're testing hardware.
Right.
It's awesome.
So that's your lander, and then your launcher is. Well, you don't have a launcher plan, do you?
The launcher
for
plan.
humans. Let's talk humans specifically. How do I get a human Because you're going to launch. You're using L2 as your launching point, right?
Yep.
So how do I get on my Masten-only system from Earth to L2?
That's a little further down. Right?
Okay.
That's down the road a little bit further, but that's, we talked earlier about, XS1. Maybe a little bit of this. Actually, I don't even know we have to scale up all that much. Basically, get past XS1 and start building the upper stages reusable. That's 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. I think we can get a couple of humans on board that.
Sure.
Don't know how far we can get that, but that's something. Once you have a system that's working and is profitable, and then I think we can, allocate more funds towards building something bigger.
You seem to be working backwards from everyone else, right? So everyone else is building their launchers first. You're building your landers.
So the thing is, to be reusable, you have to land.
Sure.
So your lander comes first naturally. And then everybody thinks, oh, well, you built this lander, you must be going to the moon. And like, okay, well, we'll work on it, but in reality, we're actually spending a lot more time and effort and money on the launcher side.
Oh, really?
But we always have to land, so you have to be doing landers, right? So
your launcher is your lander as well, I guess. Yeah.
So our launches and our landers sort of blur together in there, and yeah, it's all one thing, really.
So you've got your lander. You're kind of sort of working on that launcher. You may be a little bit down the road, but you also talked about stopping at L2. Are you working for anything at L2? Like, is there any plan there? Or are you just going to say, hey, Mr. Bigelow, may I have one of your balloons? It's not a balloon. Balloons.
Honestly,
Your bounce castle.
That's not what I meant.
Castles in the sky.
that actually may be one of the better things to go with. Yeah, that's
Bigelow balloon.
ULA has said that their aces happen to make a wonderful propellant depot.
Yes, they did.
And
That's all part of their Cislunar 1000.
Yeah, that's part of their Cislunar 1000. Yeah.
But you need more than a prop depot, don't you? Right? I mean, you need to be able to stick humans there for a little bit.
Well, I mean, once you have all that, I mean, once you have on Zeus, if you can put humans up in the front end, then you can stick that on the front of the Aces, the propellant depot.
But Zeus
you
is
then have the Eclipse and everything else. But this is all. I mean, all of this is way far down the line for us.
I know. I'm just dreaming. We're dreaming, but we're also dreaming based on actual things you're working on, right?
Yeah.
So, we're talking about an architecture that will obviously change between here and there, just based on all factors that will come at you. But I mean, it's kind of interesting to peek into your head and go, okay, well, what are you thinking right now based on what the resources you have and what you know about the different things, where you think this is all going to go. It's just a fun exercise to kind of say,
Yeah, but I want to be careful. I've been accused of being a dreamer.
I know. And actually, so that was mentioned in the chat room, and one comment I didn't bring up because it just didn't quite fit, which is that's okay because it's the dreamers who change the world, right? If you never dream about anything, you're never going to get anywhere. But you can't just dream it. You have to be willing to do it too.
The dreaming's fine, but the blood, sweat, and tears has to occur as well.
Yeah, and that's where most people fail. And that's kind of what I wanted to, what we got across in the show is that, yeah, you're dreaming, but you're also building. You're bending metal, you're making things happen. And that's important too, but the thing that we bring up quite often in the show, and it sucks, but it's the cold, harsh reality of it, which is you also have funding. That's a big deal too, especially for new space companies. We're watching new space companies fall over left and right because of funding. And funding is super important. And whether you like it or, you can't talk a lot about what you're doing because your funding comes from the government, but you have funding. So take the funding and be quiet, because then you've got something stable and you can dream and build those dreams. So yeah, it sucks that you can't tweet, but you know what sucks even more? Not being able to build it. So
exactly.
So, and I appreciate you being able to come on the show and talk about what you can talk about. I mean, I realize it's only a very small subset, but at least people get to see that you're still alive, you're still doing things, and your campus, you've grown to. When I was up there, you had a building. Yeah. Right. It was like It was one. It was a little garage. It was about the size of this.
It was 6,000 square foot building.
Okay, it was actually quite a bit bigger than this. Then it felt about the size of this building.
It was subdivided. We didn't take you to every single room, but yeah.
Aww, but Dave. Oh yeah, you couldn't at the time, if I remember right. Yeah. But yeah, now you're growing, you're doing things, you've got staff, you're doing what you
Our
seem to
staff
love, right?
is-
You were able to not do the CEO thing anymore and concentrate on what you love doing.
I'm not doing as much of the CEO stuff. Well, unfortunately, it seems like there's still CEO stuff that has to be done as a CTO, but oh well, that's fine. I get to spend some more time doing engineering.
Yeah, that's your passion, though. That's what you
Yeah.
want to do. Yeah. So, Mike has a question.
Have any of the Google Lunar X Prize teams approached you at all for landers?
Have any of the GLXP teams approached you for landers? Oh, that's a good point, because the GLXP teams, they've got their rovers, but they could potentially get a ride on like a Falcon to the moon, but that doesn't get them on the moon. That gets them to the moon. They have a get to the moon problem.
So it turns out one of the GLXP teams actually has been trying to get everybody else they're building a lander and say, hey, everybody else need a ride?
Ha.
That's sort of become sort of their business plan, as best I understand it, from public data. We've actually worked with them. We actually provided some test services through Flight Opportunities for them. So they've tested some of their technology on our vehicles.
Sure.
But other than that, one of the other teams decided that instead of getting a lander from us, they thought they would hire one of our former employees to get a lander. I don't think that worked out all that well, but I don't know. That's again, that's one
That
of
seems to
the
happen a lot in aerospace, though.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly small, tight-knit community, and everyone works for everyone else, and you just kind of bounce between companies. At least that's what I've noticed.
Except for the founders, yes.
Except for the founders, yes, exactly. Yeah. The ones with their names on the side of the company. They seem to be stuck at their own company for the most part.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. What other questions do we have in the chat? I marked a few of them earlier.
Original classifying authority. Well, it's not. The problem is not classification. The problem is, it's just a bureaucracy. It doesn't work.
Yeah, Tarantula says, just accept that social media does not have a place at the bleeding edge of aerospace R&D. The thing is, that's actually, unfortunately, so you're not wrong, but that's exactly where you kind of want that social media, because you can show some really cool things, including, I won't speak for you, I'll just speak for the industry in general. When you're doing bleeding edge R&D and you're like making fire, sometimes that controlled fire decides that it doesn't want to be controlled anymore, and it makes this beautiful, epic things that actually work really well on social media as long as you frame it correctly. So it is kind of sad that you can't show all those things. Now, you got to be careful from a marketing standpoint, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is one of the things that's come out of the social media is that you get connections and networking opportunities, and if you're posting regularly on social media, maybe you connect. I actually follow probably about a dozen or maybe 2 dozen venture capital people on Twitter. And if I'm actually able to post that stuff and maybe, mention them in the tweet.
Sure.
Like, hey, A16Z, what is this, what do you think of this? Maybe that'll get them to, to return my calls. Or what about, potential employees? We've actually had a number of people show up, in our, get resumes from them because they've heard about us through Twitter or Facebook or what have you. So no, it does, but social media is necessary for business today.
I think you're going to pull a Blue Origin on us. I think right now you want to give us the information, you just can't. And someday that restriction will be lifted. And pulling a Blue Origin, which is you're silent, you're silent, you're silent. No one knows anything. You're silent, you're silent. Nothing to see here. Nothing.
Yeah,
rocket. We have a rocket, an entire rocket. By the way, we're going to launch and land it several times. Want to see? That's pulling, right? And then everyone goes, oh, they were serious. This is amazing. This is awesome, right? I think that's what's going to end up happening with.
I hope so.
Yeah.
At least the last part, though. We have a rocket, we're launching it.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to hide that, though. I mean, even if you're in Mojave, it's kind of hard to hide that. I know there are at least a few journalists in Mojave, or at least one journalist in Mojave who watches for that stuff.
Well, maybe we might end up fooling them and just,
Hard to fool someone with a rocket launch.
Well, the thing is he's already ignoring half of our launches because they're just, Masten's out testing again. Another boring launch.
I feel like now I need.
Or my question is, do you do one of those boring launches while elsewhere is the real important test?
Mike is asking if you mess with people and do like a smaller launch over here while you do the big launch over there to kind of focus their. No, we're just doing a regular little launch over. Big huge launch.
Of course we do.
Yeah, right,
sure.
right. So
Good idea.
EOR3061 asks, how do they get solid rocket booster tests info out then? But that's a NASA thing, generally speaking, right? The SRB tests are done through NASA social channels. And I think that's just a different beast than what you're working with.
Yeah, that is a different beast from what we're working with.
Let's see here. Heldesk is asking about designing and what it takes to test a lander that heads for a long deep space cruise, then goes to something like Mars. And how do you make sure the rockets will still work after deep freeze? It's been
deep freeze, deep fry.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways of doing that. There's the rotisserie roll. Is
Just
one
constantly
way of,
rolling in space to keep it.
maintaining it. Again, the Cislunar 1000, some of the things that ULA has been working on and that we've had a chance to help out with a little bit. Something simple like on the hydrogen, basically if you have a hydrogen oxygen system, propulsion system, you have a lot of hydrogen, you have the deep freeze. Well, you want that cold, so you actually put up a sunshade, essentially, and basically shade the hydrogen. You will still have some boil off of hydrogen. You can use the boiled off hydrogen, use gaseous hydrogen, burn that with a little bit of oxygen, and you can get all the heat you want.
Sure.
Along with enough energy to do just about everything you want to do. A little extra solar power to help out with that, maybe. A lot of different ideas there. Right now I'm not exactly working on deep space missions.
Burning off excess hydrogen, nothing bad could ever happen from that.
You gotta be careful about it. Just as long as you don't stir your oxygen tanks a little too vigorously.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Destructor 1701, how many walls have you banged your head on off?
For bureaucratic frustration?
Yep.
There may be a reason why we've moved the office from the original building to a new building.
Giant dent in the wall.
Holes everywhere.
Yeah, the wall's gone.
Don't worry,
the wall's gone. I have a terrible headache, and I've been treated for a couple of concussions now.
All makes sense now.
NFL quarterbacks have nothing on me.
Let's see here.
Has Dave played Kerbal Space Program? Actually, I have not.
Really?
It's terrible.
Oh my.
You have your own real life version?
Yeah, when you do the real life thing, it's just not that fun. I used to be really active in Tripoli and National Rocket Association, and I've let my things, I've let everything go. And
I think you're running above a level 3.
I might be a little bit above level 3 at this point, but I've totally let all that go, and I'd have to go back and.
What was your last certification level?
So I finished up. I had a level 2.
All right.
Last, I was.
So you're not certified.
I was
to fly
about
your own
this far
rockets?
away from my level 3. Oh man, yeah, it
You should
became a
bring
liquid.
one of your rockets out to Lucerne when they're for like a rock stock weekend to get certified on it.
I think the certifications require a solid propellant though,
Oh, that's
or a hybrid.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so hang on. Constant debate that we have on the show. Liquid or solid?
For what?
Okay, that's a good question, but just
There
in
we go.
general.
For what? If you want to launch a nuclear warhead in 5 minutes notice,
Yep,
because that's as much time as you have, you will use a solid.
sure. All right, how about for anything
If you
else?
want to launch an astronaut, please take your solid strap-ons off and put them someplace else.
Why?
Because you cannot turn a solid off. It is
Sure.
hazardous. It is expensive. It's inherently not reusable. I know they take the shuttle solids, they recover them from the bottom of the ocean, they bring them up, they take them back,
let's-
and they completely rebuild them. And
But let's remove reusability for a moment, right? Because I mean that's definitely a Masten thing, right? But that's not part of the safety part of it, right? We're putting astronauts on top. I'm putting them on top. I'm not doing a side-mounted design. Why is a solid more dangerous than a liquid hydrogen? Liquid oxygen.
Solids. Have you been to a shuttle? You've been to a shuttle launch.
Yeah, many launches.
You've been closer than most of us have.
I have.
And I've had some privileged spots that I've seen from.
Yep. Yeah, and I think I know
you've
where
still
this
been
is going.
closer.
I think I know where this is going. But yes, acoustically, those solids are intense.
All that chest dumping, that was
yeah.
all from the solids. That
Oh, yeah.
wasn't from the hydrogen engines.
Yep.
Those liquid engines tend to be a lot smoother, a lot less problems. Had you put a person on top of the Ares 1X mission,
That was not.
that would have been Jello.
Really?
Not a person, but jelly.
Really? Because I thought that they came back and said, actually, our vibe was a lot less than we expected.
They must have expected more than what would have taken to make a person Jello, because everything I've heard was pretty nasty.
All right.
Solids just aren't the right answer for humans. I don't think. That's the.
But here's the thing, though. We launched humans with solids for decades.
And one of the two failures was from a solid.
Kind of. The failure was
No, it was a solid burn through.
It was a solid burn through, but they had solid burn throughs prior to that. It was a solid burn through hitting the strut that was holding the big external tank on, creating an aerodynamic instability. So yes, the solid burned through, but the solid itself, it wasn't like if the solid had burned through in the other direction, that mission may have been fine.
Maybe.
God is saying that was a culture problem, not a solid problem. Although, but it did. It burned through they've had burn throughs. That's how they knew. That's how the engineers went, this is a really bad idea, guys, because they knew that launching at those lower temperatures was going to be a potential issue. Because they had seen this. And Dada saying culture pushed them to launch at lower temperatures.
So I agree with Dada that there was a lot more of a culture problem than anything else. But I think.
But it was, so the solid burned through, but that wasn't what caused the loss of vehicle. It was an aerodynamic, and I'm messing with words here.
The aerodynamic came because you had a burn through at a bad spot.
But
how do you cure that? Well, just don't launch with a freaking solid. What do you need the solid for?
Well, they needed the solids on that particular vehicle to launch that much mass, right? I mean, there are advantages to solids.
They needed those particular solids in that particular configuration so they can get funding authorized by the right senator from the right state who had the right amount of power to make that or break that program.
And the correct way to destroy me on that particular debate is Buron did not use solids. It had liquid boosters on either side. What is it, Energia? Mm-hmm. So they didn't require solids on theirs at all.
Saturn V didn't require solids either.
That's correct. Yep, Saturn V didn't require solids.
Falcon Heavy doesn't seem to require solids.
My argument for solids is that let the engineer choose. So if the engineer says, look, I don't want to put humans on board, this doesn't make sense, that's fine. But don't, my argument is there are pros and cons to both, solids and liquids, and that you have to make a proper engineering choice as to where it should go. And you shouldn't just eliminate it for vibe, because they are definitely vibey.
You can deal with it.
They are vibey. You can deal with it, and there are actual reasons that the energy density in solids is insanely awesome. Like you get a butt ton of power out of a solid immediately. But you're not wrong. You can't shut them off. And if something goes, there's an epic Delta II launch video where you watch a solid just rain fire down on the launch pad.
Yep.
And with a liquid, that would not have happened. Yeah, there would have been an explosion and it would have, there would have been debris, but it wouldn't have rained fire down on the launch pad, right? But
exactly.
My entire point, which I have made the entire time, is you let the engineers choose, and if they can find valid engineering ways around this, then solids, I am not of the opinion, are actually more dangerous than liquids. I think that they are dangerous in different ways.
I think with liquids, it is easier to design
liquids
the safety into the system
Yeah, they're
easier,
so
better.
complex though.
They're not complex.
You essentially have a turbo. You have a jet engine inside of your rocket engine. I'm oversimplifying that, but you've got.
Well, you're not wrong.
Right? Yeah,
True.
That's fairly complicated. If you have an issue with your turbo pump, look at.
But on the other hand,
Antares.
we fly hundreds of thousands, millions of people every single day on giant turbo machinery
Yeah, but
around the world.
yeah, but okay. To be fair, though, they've got backup turbo machinery, right? So let's look at a jet engine, right?
They're down to you can fly a twin engine across the ocean now.
Yeah. Do you have 2 turbo pumps inside of your rocket engine to guarantee redundancy?
Actually, our turbo machinery design is 2 turbo pumps, yes, for an engine.
To guarantee redundancy?
No.
Yeah. I added that second part for a reason.
No, we have the 2 to guarantee that you don't have all the usual problems with rocket turbo pumps.
I don't understand.
Interpropellant seals is the usual failure for rocket engines. This is a failure point.
So how does having 2?
You don't have to have an interpropellant seal.
Oh, all right. That's above my pay grade, apparently.
So typically you have a single turbine.
Yep. Spinny, really fast.
The shaft goes to 2 different pumps.
Ah, I see. So it's
One is pumping oxidizer, one is pumping fuel. You have to have a seal
Yep.
for a thing going 50,000 or 100,000 RPM. Moving seals are a pain in the butt.
So you remove the seal, and
We don't have the seal because we have 2 different turbines, 2 different units, no sealing between them.
Interesting. Regardless, a liquid engine is still far more complex from a moving parts standpoint, from a points of failure standpoint, than a solid engine motor. Not to say that one is better than the other.
On the other
I think
hand-
a lot of people eliminate solids because they're all scared of vibe and think that that you think Challenger.
Vibe, there's handling
Can't shut it
difficulty-
off.
Handling difficulties because you have your oxidizer and your fuel in intimate contact long before you need them to be in intimate contact.
And there was a pad problem from some country in the 70s, 60s, something like that, where they lost a solid vehicle on the pad because you can have smoking too close to the solid or something like that. So yes, there are absolutely issues with solids, but there are issues with liquids too. That's my entire point.
Do I watch The Expanse? I don't watch TV much at all, so no, I do not watch The
Why watch
Expanse.
TV when you can go hiking?
But yeah, exactly. I can go hiking, but I did read the first book, so I actually listened to it on books on audiobook. There we go. Audiobook is the word. It used to be
Yeah.
books on tape, but yeah, I did do books on tape, so pretty good. Let's see. Nobody asked Dave if he wanted to see their electric bus.
Oh, did you see the IAC announcement? Here's where that comes from. All right, did you watch Elon Musk's IAC announcement, the International Astronautical Congress, where he announced the Mars
ITS?
plan?
Yeah.
Did you watch the Q&A afterwards?
I saw enough of it to immediately I need to go back to work.
Yeah. So one of the questions was asking Elon to go look at his electric bus. Another one was talking about poop. Another one
At
was
Burning Man.
At Burning Man and how you're going to poop on Mars. Another one was some lady
can
who
I
wanted
kiss
to
you?
kiss. Yep.
Yeah,
Another one was I want to give you a comic, and then Funny or Die basically said, hey, we want to do this sketch. And Elon was like, okay. But the brilliant thing was Elon found a way to spin each one of those back into space as best he could, even though those people were just idiots. It's like, ugh. Yeah.
Kissing, yeah, there's probably going to be lots of kissing if you need to set up a colony. That's going to be long-lived and, live after a single generation. Yeah, who knows?
Jasser wants to know if you can do a pinpoint landing on the top of Mount Olympus Mons. But it's Olympus Mons, right?
Olympus
Yes.
Mons, yes.
But you said it's a volcano, so the top is
It is actually a volcano,
The highest
so-
point actually wouldn't be the middle, or because
So the highest point is on the rim.
Yeah, right, because it actually dips
But
back
there's
down.
also there's a caldera inside of it.
Caldera
as
is the
well.
word we were looking for. We called it volcano hole.
Volcano hole.
I thought it had to be a certain size before it's a caldera, which with Olympus Mons, it could very well be a caldera.
Super
I
caldera?
believe it is I believe it's just a caldera in the fact that it's a depression in the middle of the volcano.
A volcano hole.
Yes.
No, that would be the vent.
The vent. Ah,
See, there's actual structure to volcanoes, Ben.
I'm super confused.
So it's okay. We'll teach
I
you.
did. I was trying to ask. I was trying to find out because I don't know. I'm terrible at geology, unfortunately. For all that mountaineering stuff I do, I don't know my geology.
There's an irony there. You need the Apollo 17 because
I need that course, right?
Yeah.
The Apollo 17 guys did that course beforehand. Yeah, I need that.
Yeah.
Not going to ask that. Oh, how do your goals line up against NASA's Morpheus project?
I'm not sure. Morpheus has sort of disappeared. I think a lot of the Morpheus people are helping us out on Catalyst, so there's a lot of overlap there. Morpheus for NASA Johnson was really about doing, giving their guys an opportunity to get their hands on some hardware, and that did wonderful, great. We do love to give our interns a chance to get their hands on some actual flight hardware as well. And hopefully we're taking it a couple steps beyond what NASA's Morpheus program was even intended to do.
I'm looking for more.
Well, turbojet turbofan engines. No, they do not have any benefits for usable launch vehicles. They have lots of benefits for other types of reusable vehicles, like, say, airplanes.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you have.
So the problem is you put a turbojet or a turbofan, their thrust to weight ratios are absolutely terrible.
Oh, you're saying
they're
just use it purely as an air-breathing engine?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what the question is. I don't
What
know
about
if you're
Sabre?
a pilot.
Something like Sabre, where it kind of converts from an air-breathing engine to a LOX-breathing engine.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, you talk about complexity of liquid propellants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Space Mike has turned into an icon.
I don't know what's going on.
Hi, Space Mike.
Hear me still?
Hey, Space Mike.
We need the Space Mike.
South Park Mike.
South Park Mike. Yeah. I think we're running.
Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you.
That's weird. I don't know.
My IFB died.
Oh, all right. So I'm the only one who can hear Space Mike.
Yep.
It's a Space Micon. You like that?
Nobody cares.
All right. On that note, are we winding down? You hungry? I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
I'm
Yeah,
hungry.
I think it's food time. You guys hungry?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What is your ring? Is your ring made out of something cool? It's like blue.
It's silicon.
Silicon.
Silicon. Nice.
Any reason it's silicon?
Several reasons. One, if I happen to be playing with machinery or anything, and the tool grabs onto it, it won't take my finger off.
Yep.
Also, because
The other ones don't look right.
it was fairly inexpensive. It's much more utilitarian. It serves its job without being gold. I don't have to worry about losing it as much.
Inert.
It's inert.
So, just curious. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
actually,
cool.
the big one. I don't wear a ring because I was working, not because I work
If
on
I'm-
rockets, but I was working in racks and it kept crushing the ring around my finger, and I was getting worried that I was just going to it was going to smash into my finger and I have to take my finger off. So. That's actually one possible solution.
So this is and it still serves its function of telling everybody else that I am in fact married and leave me alone.
Sir Gamelot says engineer through and through. Well done. Well done. All right.
Thank you
I think
very
that's about
much,
it.
Dave.
Only last item that I'm going to tell you. I don't know if you've watched the show recently, but we've talked. We found Burt Rutan's Twitter account, and he was all about. I was all about hamburgers and whatnot, and then we found out none of it's real. So we're going to go eat a burger, I believe, in memory of the not real Burt Rutan
account.
Twitter account.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did want to ask Dave one more question if he has just a moment.
Yeah. So Space Mike has one last question, which is.
In the near term, with this new hypergol mix, does he plan on doing smaller attitude control thrusters and possibly selling those to other customers?
So he asks, in the near term with your new hypergol mix, are you planning on working with any attitude control thrusters and then possibly selling them to anyone?
So I think what we're going with we're talking to some folks who have some interest in it, want to take it to market. And so, we're doing something to, hopefully it'll be part of the thing that comm satellites use in the future. And, unfortunately, I really can't talk much more about it than, we have a plan, we're talking to some people, and it will be going to market.
Could you give us the exact chemical formula? I'm just kidding.
I will tell you its constituent components. How about that?
All right.
It has a whole lot of quarks and some electrons.
Well, thank you. That's super useful. I
helps.
think now we've got the recipe.
Yeah, we've got the fundamental makeup of the recipe. We can rebuild it.
All right. And I'm sorry for ruining everyone in the chat room and letting you know that Burt Rutan's burger account is fake. I think it was To Wicked that pointed it out because Burt Rutan.
Thanks To Wicked.
Yeah, thanks for ruining it, To Wicked. Although I feel like we need a fake Dave Masten account on Twitter.
We were talking about the board Dave Masten account.
Is there a board Dave Masten account?
We've been talking about one of the engineers might end up creating it at some point.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Because I've done a number of. Apparently, I've been bored at work a few times.
I feel like one of the engineers should be you, and it should just be actual board Dave Masten posting on board Dave Masten. I think that would be super magical. Right? It messes with your head a little bit. I think that would be awesome.
Yesterday I was thinking about how we need a protocol for shutting down Internet of Crap machines.
I know, right?
Yes.
Everyone who has a smart toaster should feel very guilty right now.
Yes, absolutely. If you have one of those brand new fridges that thinks it needs to be on the net so you can tell what you need when you're at the grocery store.
You took down the internet.
Way to go. Way to go.
Thanks.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I would ask if you thought about space-based protocols for internet, but they already exist, So no need.
I did that before I even started Masten Space Systems.
There you go.
And there's an RFC already out there for doing TCP over Mars to Earth TCP type interfaces.
TCP normally would not like that kind of latency.
Yeah, not at all.
All right. On that note, we out. Thank you, everyone. It was a fun show. I hope you'll join us next week where we bring Vax on the show. We talk some small sats going on Masten's future launch vehicle. Or Electron rocket, I suppose, would work too. They're about to launch. Anyone else about to launch?
Not sure.
I think that they're about it right now for the small sat launcher.
Yeah, for small sats at least.
All right. When's Launcher 1 going?
I think, they're 2 years out?
6 months?
6 months? No, I'm pretty sure Launcher 1 hasn't gotten down to the 6 months.
I think Launcher 1's a little bit further out.
I think they're at the
6
2
months
years.
is for Spaceship 2, I think.
Yeah, Spaceship 2 is 6 months. I think Launcher 1's 2 years out.
Yeah.
I have to be
6
nice
months.
because we've got George Whiteside's coming on the show in not too distant future, so I need to make sure.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I'll
awesome.
ask him if he's 6 months or 2 years out. I think he doesn't hit me. He'll just look at me silently, get up and leave. I don't need this from you. They could legit be a week away. I have no idea.
Yeah,
All right,
they could
on that
be.
note, see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.